Sleepy for some reason. Hey guys, it's another week has passed, and that means that we must do another MapPorn review weekly video. So welcome to video number 4, and here we go. This first map we saw in last week's video, so I'm just gonna skip it. So here we go, world map, but it's centered on Buenos Aires, Argentina. So let's see. Yeah, this is, I'm guessing this is probably an azimuthal equidistant projection. And this type of map projection is very useful if you are focusing on one specific point and you want to map things that are going out from that point, or things involving like a radius. Anyway, so you can create this type of map projection for literally any point on Earth, so there's nothing special about this map. Other than the fact that it's centered on Buenos Aires. But if you know how to use QGIS and if you know how to do custom projections, you can go in, specify any latitude-longitude pair, and create this projection for any kind of location. Okay, so these people are joking that, yeah, so porteño, a person from Buenos Aires is called a porteño because of the port. Obviously, Buenos Aires was Argentina's main port. And porteños are very stereotypically like they think Buenos Aires is the center of the world. It's kind of like the New Yorker stereotype in the United States. New York was the main like entry point and America's biggest city for a long time, and so on. And same with Buenos Aires. So people are making jokes about that. Let's see. Okay, the rest of the comments are kind of dumb. So anyway, this is a funny little map, I guess. It kind of the distortion, as with any projection, there's a lot of distortion, and for this one especially, the distortion becomes huge out towards the edges here. Which states in the US are actually city-states? Over half the state's population is located in one metro area. Okay, so see if I can guess all of these. So Anchorage, Alaska, Honolulu, Hawaii, Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Tacoma, Washington, Salt Lake City, Utah, Denver, Colorado, Twin Cities, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois. Looks like Omaha, Nebraska is too close to call, so it's like right at 50%. Atlanta, Georgia, it must be DC area for Maryland and DC. Must be Wilmington area for Delaware. It must be I guess New York City has both 50% of New York State's and New Jersey's population. The New York City metro area, I should say. It's weird that it's like the main city is outside of the state, I guess. Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts for... Does the Boston area really have 50% of New Hampshire's population, though? I don't know. Or would it be like the Manchester, Concord, Nashua? Is that all one thing? So Hillsborough County has... Hillsborough and Rockingham County together have more than half the state's population. And... or Rockingham plus Stafford. This is a weird one, actually. I don't know if this is like correct. Yeah, I don't. Okay. So that one may or may not be wrong, but whatever. We'll just. I guess the problem is that over half the states. So I don't think 50% is like a good threshold. The real city-states, I think, are Nevada, because Vegas has either 80 or 90% of Nevada's population, some very huge number. And Illinois, 70% of Illinois' population lives in the Chicago area, which is way more than any of these other states. I'm not sure about Phoenix and Arizona. I mean, there's Tucson. There's a bunch of other places in Arizona, so... I think really it's Nevada and Illinois. One way this map could be improved is instead of setting your own arbitrary threshold of 50%, they should have just shown what percent of the state's population lives in the largest metro area. I think that would have been better, and it would have allowed readers to make their own conclusions. So And it would be like less confusing, I think, because I don't know what the hell is going on in New Hampshire. Um, but this is cool. I like it. It's very thought-provoking. Okay, this is a 3D map. We don't see these very often. It says Manhattan is less dense today than it was in 1910, which is, yeah, pretty obvious. I mean, if you've been to Manhattan, I mean, if you look at those photos of like those tenements and just like how all those immigrants lived in 1900 and 1910, people complain now that, you know, you pay like $2,000 a month for like a tiny place in New York City, but like, I don't know, maybe it's actually a good deal. You know, I wonder how the square footage per person price has changed over time. I'd be curious to see that. Because you see these immigrants who came with absolutely nothing, and they live like 8 people to 1 room, something like that. So, yeah, we're spoiled in the 21st century. There's no way we could match the density levels of 1910, and I don't think we want to. I mean, that's like a standard of living type of thing. You know, we don't want to go back to those times, I think. Okay, Canada, but just the roads. Yeah, this is a really old, this is definitely a repost from like 5 years ago or something, because I remember these kinds of maps back when I was much more active on this subreddit, and they would really piss me off because I would spend like 40 hours, 50 hours working on like, I don't know, some Roman roads map or something, or one of my maps, and this map takes like 60 seconds to make. The hardest part of this map is downloading the data. Once you've downloaded the data, you just open it in QGIS, and that's it. And then you can change the colors and do whatever you want, and it takes like a minute to do. You could even write a Python script that automatically downloads the data and colors it like this and generate these maps for every single country. That's what you could do. And then you could make a bot to post them on Reddit and reap the karma, I guess. So anyway, I used to get really pissed at these people because they would get lots of karma for absolutely nothing. But if you approach this map with an open mind, first of all, the color scheme is really cool. You know, I like it's not just purely lightness, darkness based. There's also like a hue change from blue to magenta to orange to yellow. And it really reveals, I guess, a few things about Canada. So the Great Plains part of Canada here, you can very clearly see. And all of these magenta roads here, the infill, those are all farming roads, basically. The system out there is very regular. I believe I don't know if it's every mile or whatever. There's like at regular intervals, there's roadways. So this agricultural zone is completely filled in with roadways. But if you look at northern Ontario, where there's forests instead of farmland, you don't see this kind of road pattern. And of course, the southern Ontario and southern Quebec, which is home to that area, I believe has 70% of Canada's population, and it's very clear just based on the density of roadways. Not to mention that this area is not forested; it's very agricultural, which again contributes to the regular road network effect. So it really lights it up here. All the roads of Canada. I think I have a video on my channel where I show you how to make this kind of map. And if I don't have that video, I have a different video, but maybe I'll make a video really quickly on how to make this thing if you want to make one of these for yourself. Countries, regions that have imposed bans on wearing of certain Islamic veils. Wow, so there's really a whole lot going on here. It's funny, I feel like every single video that I've made, there's been something about Islam. I think one of them, so the maps of the US, right? That's like 50% of MapPorn. Maps of Europe and maps of Islam. Those are the 3 things that people are really interested in, I guess. Islamic, yeah, so France very famously banned, I think, any kind of hijab, which is, I believe hijab is just the generic word for Islamic covering. There's sort of more like there's a lot of terminology, and it varies from region to region. Not every first of all, not every Muslim woman chooses to cover herself. It's culture specific, not really religion specific. And also, there's different terms for different types of coverings, and um, it seems like they lump everything kind of all together into one, because it's a huge difference, obviously, if somebody is wearing like a full burqa versus just a very sort of light headscarf. There's obviously a huge difference, and this is all kind of treated uniformly on this map. There are actually laws in the United States that are not specific to Islam, that just say that for public safety reasons, you can't walk around with something that obscures your face, for example, or like a balaclava or a ski mask or something. So there are laws against that, which are not specific to Islamic coverings. But I wonder. I guess this map specifically deals with Islam. I'm gonna go to the comments here because I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of insight there that I'm just not familiar with. There's no restriction on Islamic veils in Australia that I'm aware of, says one person here. Based on Wikipedia, it seems they've had numerous attempts to ban, but they've failed. New South Wales did pass a law requiring you to remove facial coverings if asked by law enforcement. But see, again, that's what I was talking about with the United States. There's plenty of local laws in the U.S. that have the exact same wording, where basically, if it's a safety concern, or if law enforcement asks you, then you should remove your, or if you're in a school building or something, you can't wear something that obscures your face. But it's not specific to Islam. Let's see. And by the way, those laws actually do, at least in the US, as far as I'm aware, have religious exemptions. So a police officer cannot, I don't, this depends on the jurisdiction, but at least in the United States, I don't think a police officer can ask a woman wearing a burqa to remove it. I'm not sure. And again, this could depend on the state, could depend on even the county or the municipality, but so there's things like that. So anyway, so first of all, this map is apparently wrong. Australia does not have any kind of ban or restriction specifically on Islamic veils. Hijabs were once banned in Turkey, but the ban was lifted more than a decade ago. Okay, so this ban was lifted in Turkey by Erdogan a few years ago. Calling it by Erdogan is a stretch. Turkish people wanted the headscarf ban to be lifted, yeah. Full face veils is banned in universities in Syria since 2010. Not hijab, niqab ban. The niqab is, and there's a lot of like rhetoric these days about, I don't know, whenever people talk about this, like, oh, you have to educate yourself and be familiar with all these cultural distinctions and stuff, but I don't blame people. I mean, this is a huge geographical area, and every culture has their own different word for it. So niqab is, okay, abaya. I've seen that word too. Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, hijab. So I was correct. Hijab is the general term meaning just to cover or veil. So really the word hijab actually covers like all of these situations, but usually, at least in the United States, when they say hijab, usually they mean just what this woman in this picture is wearing, like a kind of a looser headscarf that's less restrictive, and it's just a scarf. It's not a full body thing. And then the burqa, yeah, the burqa obscures the eyes as well, versus a niqab, which in Virginia there's a lot of Saudi Arabian women who wear this. Yeah, so anyway, you could go into, yeah, there's like a South Asian thing. So it's very complicated, but interesting nonetheless. Anyway, so this map is wrong, so we're just going to move on because there's better things out there to focus on. Relief map of Western Europe and Northeast Africa. This is something that gets reposted all the time. Yeah, it's even tagged as a repost. This has been recycled for the last like at least 4 or 5 years. Um, but again, we haven't covered it in these videos yet, so this is a cool map, and this one I think is made in Blender. What you can do is you can download an elevation model of the Earth and as a raster image, and then you can apply that to a sphere, and then use that as a depth map, and then you can download a second layer, which is the land covering, and that's going to give it the coloring there. So the depth map plus the land cover image as the texture together, those two things will render this type of image for you. So yeah, so this is cool, and I don't know, just sort of eye candy, nothing special here. And of course, this is highly exaggerated. So these mountains are not actually this high compared to the Po River Valley here, the Alps. You know, this is stretched out so that we, the viewers, can see more clearly all the mountains and things. So it doesn't actually look like this. Another one, okay, Africa, just the roads. So a few things here, right? I already mentioned how these maps are really easy to make. The thing to understand here is that, well, first of all, it seems like this person used different line thicknesses for different types of roads. I'm guessing like primary so-called trunk highways and motorways, this person put in thicker lines compared to residential roads and so on. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's kind of misleading if you want to have this, just this single layer silhouette type of thing. It's it'd be better if all the lines were the same thickness, because obviously not all roads are the same exact thickness, but from the level of outer space, you know, there's no, it's a very, very small difference. So I would have just left all the line thicknesses the same instead of emphasizing these major roads. But in any case, this kind of shows you some of the sampling issues here. I'm guessing this data set was taken from OpenStreetMap. And OpenStreetMap is amazing, especially in recent years. They've gotten much better at covering places like Africa, India, Southeast Asia. But still, there are sort of gaps and there are problems. So in Nigeria, for example, you can see there's like these random holes. And these holes are not a result of there actually being a forest or a mountain or something. For the most part, these holes are the result of just basically the OpenStreetMap community does like one state in Nigeria at a time, or one grid cell at a time, and they just haven't gotten to it yet. Or usually, if there's like a humanitarian disaster, like a civil war or like a earthquake or something, OpenStreetMap has these volunteer efforts where people look at satellite imagery and manually draw in the roadways. And so sometimes you get really, really good coverage for like some random part of Africa that was hit by an earthquake. And then the area right next to it that was not hit by the earthquake, the roads are there, like the roads exist. They're just not marked on OpenStreetMap because they haven't had the time or resources yet to reach that area. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind with these type of maps. When it's just raw data, it's going to reflect the state of the data as much as it is going to reflect any sort of state about what the data is trying to describe. And this is a perfect example of that. So, but overall, I don't want to criticize it too much. I think it's cool that it reveals just the structure of human habitation in Africa. So the northern coastline obviously is very developed and heavily inhabited. The Nile River Delta and the floodplain here in Egypt. We have Ethiopia, the highlands here around Addis Ababa and that whole area. Then there's sort of the West African region. There's Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Guinea, Senegal, Mali, etc., etc. So that area has, I want to say roughly, Africa has just over 1 billion people. That area has about 400 or 500 million people, more than the United States. Almost as many people as Europe now. I wonder when those two will cross paths. Africa had fewer people than Europe. I think I think 1990 was the year that Africa had more people than Europe, or maybe it was 2000. It was relatively recent. And then there's the African Great Lakes region, which has countries like Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. Um, it looks like Malawi has randomly really good coverage. You can almost see the outline of the country here of Malawi. So some countries clearly have better coverage than others. Rwanda and Burundi seem to have really good coverage. Tanzania, not so much, and Congo, not so much. South Africa, and yeah, so you can just kind of see the main regions in Africa that are inhabited and developed. But I think a population density map serves that purpose a little better. So the roads is cool, but keep in mind that this particular data set, especially regions like Africa, where data is harder to come by in a clean format, it's going to reflect some of the errors and the systemic problems of the data set. Okay, this is one we saw last week. I'm going to skip that. Each state's main export partner. So pretty much just Mexico and Canada. There's a few states. Nevada seems to export a lot of stuff to Switzerland, and Utah exports to the United Kingdom. I'm a little bit surprised, honestly, to see these two countries. New Hampshire is Germany. Connecticut is Germany. I can't tell. Rhode Island looks like Germany as well. South Carolina, Germany. So, and then of course, yeah, so the states closest to Mexico are exporting a lot to Mexico. Washington and Oregon and Alaska are exporting to China, and Hawaii is exporting to New Zealand, or Australia, excuse me. That was a close one. Florida seems to export to Brazil. So Florida is geographically closest to Brazil, so if you're shipping something from the US to Brazil, it's probably cheapest to ship it from Florida. But almost as much, I'm glad they provide the amounts, actually, that's really helpful. Okay, 7.7% of, what is this? Export value percentage of, okay, so 7.7% of Florida's exports go to Brazil. So I guess Florida has a very diverse situation. 50% of Utah's exports go to the UK. Now, does that make any sense? Utah has a lot of mining. That's probably most of what Utah exports. We're gonna have to consult the comments here, guys. I don't know. Okay, so Nevada is exporting gold. So I'm guessing this is by dollar value. This is not by volume. Certainly, well, I guess gold does weigh a lot, but yeah, by volume would be a totally different story, right? But because gold has such a high dollar amount, then Nevada's exports of gold to Switzerland seem to be very prominent here. Yeah, a lot of German cars actually have, or just a lot of European car makers in general have factories in the United States, and it looks like there's a BMW plant in South Carolina. There's also Volvo, which is a Swedish company. People are asking about DC and Qatar. I mean, that's just whatever. I mean, Washington, DC has such small exports. I don't even know what it could be. Florida's, okay, I was wondering about Florida and Brazil, right? Aircraft parts, that actually makes a lot of sense. Brazil is a fairly large aircraft manufacturer. Fertilizer, that also makes sense. Brazil has a lot of, especially soy agriculture that requires heavy fertilization. Heavy machinery, probably farming equipment and stuff like that. Medical and optical instruments. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, a lot of Brazilians live in Miami. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of Latin American rich people live in Miami but do business and import, export and stuff. And it's nice because Florida has no state income tax and it's all very easy and yeah. New Hampshire and Germany. Aircraft parts. Okay. Yeah, so this is okay, this is a great comment section. This is the stuff that we wanted, right? Because there's no way like I could know all these details. Yeah, non-ferrous metals. So that's the weird ones are usually like yeah, some sort of metal being exported from Utah. I don't know what Utah produces. Um, zinc, or I don't know what it. Well, yeah, non-ferrous. A ferrous metal is steel, iron. This is what I thought. Ferrous metal is just iron and various iron alloys like steel. Uh, cool. Okay, let's move on. Country with the name of Bougainville will appear on our world maps by 2027. Is that true or is that not true? Because there is a movement that I was aware of in Papua New Guinea for this island to become independent. So as people may or may not know, like Papua New Guinea is barely a country. Like basically, it's just a bunch of tribes that don't even really pay much attention to central government, and so it's not like culturally cohesive at all. And so there's certain islands or regions that kind of want their own country, I guess, or their own government. I don't know how it would really help them. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's because they would be such a small, powerless country at the mercy of Australia or China or the United States. It would just wouldn't make any sense. Bougainville from Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea got it from Australia, which Australia was independent from Britain. So it's a four chain of independence. Let's see. Okay. So they have. Okay, so they actually reached. They reached an agreement, which is nice. Okay. So there was a referendum in 2019, which. Wow, 98% voted for independence instead of greater autonomy. There was a civil war. Okay, so it seems like a pretty big deal. Interesting, interesting. Okay, so there will be a country called Bougainville, where the capital will be Buka, as indicated by the comments, in 2027. Good stuff. Olympus Mons compared to France. So, yeah, so it's a well-known factoid that Olympus Mons, which is the largest volcano in the solar system and the biggest mountain on Mars, covers an area approximately the size of metropolitan France. And apparently Olympus Mons is actually so big that if you're standing on the slope of it, the curvature of Mars is already significant enough that you can't see the peak because of the curvature of Mars. So the peak is actually behind the horizon. That's how huge of an area this is covered by this mountain. Let's see what the comments are saying here. So this is a cool map. I mean, it's not often that you see maps of things outside of the Earth. So. Yeah, okay, there we go. That's the factoid that, okay. This map is wrong and I wish people would stop posting it. Okay, so the real, okay, so it's still huge, right? It's still very big. But yeah, this is the correct size comparison and not, so I'm guessing somebody probably heard that it's the same size as France and they just created this map without actually like doing the research and checking, so. Geologic map of South America from 1950 with 3D terrain effect. So again, this is like a similar thing you can do in Blender with depth map and yeah, and a texture that you can. So it's cool to look at. It's exaggerated again. So the Andes Mountains are very, very tall, but they're not that tall. So what can I say? Yeah. I'm kind of bored. I'm kind of tired of seeing these, to be honest, so I'm just going to keep going. If France and Britain were a single country, oh my goodness, Frangland. Well, so I'm sure this will be pointed out in the comments, but there was a possibility that this would actually happen because as we know, here, I'll just type it in. Angevin Empire, I don't know if Angevin Empire was a contemporary term, but basically there was a point in time where London, where most of France was actually ruled from London, most of present-day France, I should say, because the kings of England inherited the territory of Aquitaine, which is this southern portion here, and as well as Normandy, right? Everybody knows that William the Conqueror came from Normandy over to England But remember that he was still remained in charge of Normandy. So for a while, England had both, and so there was a point, a decent sort of opportunity for England to actually fully control both France and present-day France and the present-day UK. However, the Hundred Years' War basically resulted in England losing everything they had. I'm not an expert on the Hundred Years' War. I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that I believe it could have gone the other way. It was not like a very clear-cut battle, but for one reason or another, England lost, and so the rest is history. Actually, it's all history. But yeah, so anyway, Frangland, this is not as far-fetched of a concept as it may seem. So it'd be the 10th largest country by population between Japan and Russia. It would be the third highest GDP after China, but before Japan. And it would be about the same size as Turkey, which shows you how big Turkey is. Mozambique is a huge country. I actually wouldn't have thought that Mozambique and Turkey are about the same size. I always thought Mozambique was way bigger. And then we have the exclusive economic zone. Everybody knows France has a huge exclusive economic zone. And it's mostly just islands in the Pacific or just various islands around the world. And, if you control that island, you control a 200 nautical miles zone around that island as the EEZ. So Frangland would inherit both England's islands and France's islands, and that leads to just a massive, overpowered economic zone, exclusive economic zone. I should say Frangland is a combination of France and Angleterre, which is French for England. So it's kind of a pun there. Frangland is like, they should have said Frangland. That would have made more sense in English, right? Or Frangland, something like that. Okay, well, cool thought experiment. Kind of a shitty map. I mean, they could have made it way better looking, but whatever. Countries in Asia that recognize same-sex marriage on a national level. Taiwan. I believe it's rumored that Taiwan's president, Tsai Ing-wen, is actually gay. I think there's like some evidence of that or something. I don't know. She's despite this law being passed, she would never come out publicly because that would destroy a lot of her political support among more traditionally oriented people. And we should remember that, Asian society is different in a lot of ways. So they have different attitudes towards same-sex marriage and homosexuality. So I think, so Taiwan is the only country. I don't know why that is. Why specifically Taiwan? Why not some other country like Singapore or I don't know who else? I mean, pretty much all these countries are very conservative. Even Russia. I mean, Russia's not really conservative. It's hard to apply Western cultural labels onto other non-Western cultures, but when it comes to recognizing marriage and things like that, the Asian countries would correspond to what would be considered conservative in the West, even if overall their culture may or may not be conservative. So, okay, every country ever invaded by France. Wow, so. So that's a lot of countries, and you would expect that from a 19th and 20th century world power that has it's not England, it's not Britain. Britain definitely holds the record for global operations, but it's something that as a European power you have to do. You have to make yourself present throughout the world, and that's what France has done. So, I don't know. For some reason, I don't find this map particularly interesting, to be honest with you, but there it is. So, let's see. Okay, this is another like bullshit. The Economist Intelligence Unit is notorious, in my mind, for creating bullshit maps, basically, or presenting. So The Economist is highly trusted as a news source, and to be fair, they are great. They're a very good news source, but they leverage this trust with the Economist Intelligence Unit into creating like these indexes, like a freedom index or like a democracy index, or I don't know, just various indexes that may or may not actually make any sense, but people just take them seriously because it's The Economist. So where water stress will be highest by 2040? Projected ratio of water withdrawals to water supply. I don't know. This seems weird. Okay, like look at Europe. You could always do some common sense checks to see if a map sort of makes sense or not. For example, why is Ukraine red, and then like Belarus and Russia are blue, right? And Romania is blue. Whenever there's a random like Ukraine is not a desert country. I understand why the Middle East is in red, because there's not a lot of fresh water sources there to begin with, at least renewable fresh water sources. But yeah, Ukraine is suspicious. I don't know. This is all weird. The United States, for some reason, is considered sus, but then they don't really break it down within the U.S. I mean, it's California, sure. Texas, maybe. Florida, potentially. Each one has its own different set of issues, right? California just doesn't have a lot of water to begin with. And Texas has more water, but it's kind of irregular. And but Texas is okay. Florida has tons of fresh water. The problem is that if Miami like builds the wrong way or something, then seawater might actually leak into the freshwater aquifer that currently supplies the city of Miami, and that would be a huge problem if that happens. So anyway, needless to say, this is a really complicated situation that can't just be distilled to a map like this. So this type of map I really wouldn't trust that much. That's all I will say for now. This is really cool. I've seen this map I think on Wikipedia or something. Territory is still held by Nazi Germany when they surrendered in 1945. So, yeah, Austria, or what is this? Yeah, Austria and Bohemia, Czech Republic area. German-speaking parts of northern Italy, Denmark, Norway, those areas. Oh, and then this, these guys right here. This I forget what it's called. This Courland pocket or something. Basically the Soviet army was moving so fast that they just didn't have time to deal with the Nazis in this little area, and they just decided to ignore them basically because it wasn't really like important for them to deal with that. So they just kept on moving. So these guys, in a way, got really lucky that they didn't die. They were just sort of ignored. Yeah, and then so it's just kind of whatever last regions were. The Soviet and Western armies didn't really have time to really reach. A lot of Jews fled to Denmark, but I believe also a lot of Nazis ended up in Denmark. Let's see what the comments have to add to this. Yeah, Norway. But I mean, again, these are just such remote areas that there's no point of wasting resources, basically. So this is talking about there was some islands where some Germans and Italians were kind of stuck there. Not the worst place to be stuck, honestly. Yeah, the German ports were very heavily fortified. Germany created this, I think it was called the seawall, basically, the Atlantic seawall, at least metaphorically. Yeah, right up until the end of the war, they were fighting very, very hard. Yeah, in Yugoslavia. So a lot of people in this sort of, this Austro-Hungarian Yugoslav area, there was just all this fighting that just kept on happening that people don't talk about. Yeah, the Courland pocket, that's what I was referring to. Okay, just kidding. So I'm sorry, I was wrong. Apparently the Soviets did try to conquer it. Yeah, so Heinz Guderian advised Hitler to evacuate it so the troops could be used elsewhere, but Hitler thought it would be a great bridgehead for the counteroffensive to finally bring down the Soviet Union. Yeah, so, okay, it was not possible to evacuate the Courland Peninsula. That is just German generals blaming their failures on a reviled dead man. So clearly there's some sort of discussion that's, to this day, it's not clear, what was best and who said what, who's responsible for what. I don't know about this six major offensives thing. I'm really not sure about that, actually. The Courland Pocket was an area of the Courland Peninsula where a group of Nazi German forces were cut off and surrounded by the Red Army for almost a year. The pocket was created during the Baltic Offensive. When they were ordered to surrender to the Soviet command, they were in a blackout and did not get the official order before May 10th, 2 days after the capitulation of Germany. That makes sense. There was no communication. If there was communication, they could have just evacuated, but the whole point was they couldn't evacuate. Okay, so the question is, well, oh, this is the map that I saw. This is really cool because it's extremely detailed. I like this. Yeah, so similar map to what we saw before. The question is, did the Soviet army try? Soviet forces launched 6 major offensives against German pocket between citation needed. So can't really find any evidence of that, at least on Wikipedia. Yeah, okay, so it's not clear. So with Reddit, you always have to trust but verify. But it's more like don't trust and verify. That's what I would go with for Reddit. Anyway, I love World War II history because it's so recent and it's like all this modern technology and stuff, and it's just really fascinating. And very scary to think of. Every time I read about World War II, I think about how blessed we are to live in this relative time of peace. But personally, I would be shocked if the 21st century passed without a single major world war. So we shall see. We shall see. But mutually assured destruction, who knows, right? If the weapons these days are so powerful, there's nuclear weapons, but there's also biological weapons. There's also, I was going to say chemical weapons, but that's not even the scariest. The scariest is, things like UAVs and drones and robots and things. So it could well be that people are so scared of using them that we never end up really using them. Or if there is a big war in the 21st century, maybe it'll be more like a civil war or something. But anyway, time will tell. But it's definitely a huge anomaly, the situation that we live in right now, and the world is to some extent unraveling. COVID put a stress on the system, but the system had already been coming apart for a while, basically. So COVID just, as with everything, every big disaster or crisis event only precipitates trends that have already been occurring in the past. So, it's not like we didn't have the technology, for example, to enact things like lockdowns and tracing and stuff. We had the technology. There was just no desire to do it until 2020, 2021. So, and this is just going to keep happening, basically. There's a light side to every technology, and there's a dark side, and generally the dark side doesn't come out until specific crises, such as 9/11, COVID, whatever the next crisis is going to be. I guess we'll see. So exciting. What's in store? Oh boy. It'll probably be something cyber related. It'll probably be like a computer virus or something. That's my guess, but we'll see what happens. Strangest political parties in Europe. This is Atlasova, which we've mentioned in previous videos. They're sort of a culprit of creating really stupid maps. But this one's fine because this one is not even pretending to be serious. This is just like a fun map. So I totally support this. And I like how no place for fun in politics. That's Russia, Greece. That's absolutely not true. I know for a fact that these countries have very ridiculous political things. I guess the creators of this map just didn't manage to find them. The pedophile party in the Netherlands, the pirate party in France, the party of democratic karma, movement for the sick. Is that really strange? I don't know. The Nude and Proud party, the Teddy Bear Alliance, the Abolish the Scottish Parliament party. Interesting. That's not that crazy. I mean, not everybody supports, de-evolution, whatever. The election party with a Mexican theme in Copenhagen. Okay. Donald Duck Party. Is there anything? The Beer Lovers Party. There seems to be a couple beer parties. They should unite. Austria has a beer party. Belarus has a beer party, and Norway has a beer party. The Patriotic Party. That's like very normal, actually. I don't know. We're gonna troll the European Parliament Party. Do any of these have any substantial support? The Guns and Dope Party. Yeah, I mean. Creating a Facebook group with 10,000 members doesn't count as a political party. So, okay. Well, anyway, this is fun. So, New York City. Oh, okay. This is interesting. The 2021 New York City electoral map. I love this. This is because rarely do we really get to see the such a detailed look within a city, and a city so complex and multifaceted as New York. So a lot of blue. I guess obviously it's mostly a Democratic city. Really, if anything, it's more of a question of where are the Republicans, and where are the Republicans? So I don't know too much about New York. I'll start with that. I know these areas are very heavily Russian and Jewish. A lot of people from the Soviet Union who are opposed to anything that sounds even remotely similar to communism. So if it's anything involving expanding social programs or sort of leftist type of things, they're going to vote against that. So it makes sense why these people here are voting for the Republican Party. Independent? Actually, maybe it's not Republican. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, in any case, it's not the Democrat. That's the point. Let's see. This area is this Astoria? I'm looking at this little red pocket here. Maybe like some conservative Greek people or something. Staten Island is just a bunch of like Italians and Puerto Ricans and Russians and Ukrainians. So it's like a combination of anti-communist people with just like, traditional conservative sort of Italian type of people. Let me see what the comments say. I could definitely use some help here, especially for these areas up here. Looks like Eric Adams won the crucial airport vote. That's good. Imagine telling someone that Italians, Irish, and Orthodox Jews would be the base of the GOP, while the wealthy Upper East Side would be solidly Democrat. This happens a lot in American politics. Every 50 years or so, things just flip. And so the Democrats kind of used to be, working class, labor unions, poor people. Now there's still poor people because of the racial element. It's like black and Hispanic people vote Democrat, sort of. Less and less these days, but at least that's the traditional mindset. But yeah, there's definitely a flip where the party of the establishment is definitely the Democratic Party, and so the party of just like the cultural elite and rich people is the Democrats, and that's not something that was always the case. But yeah, it's sort of flipped now. So the marginalized groups are increasingly gravitating towards the Republicans, and it's an interesting transition in American politics because when Obama won in 2008 and 2012, it seemed as though the Democrats were basically just destined to dominate American politics into the future because of they say demographics is destiny. If all the racial minorities vote Democrat, plus the cultural elite educated type people, that coalition together they thought would be unstoppable. But it turns out the minorities, especially Hispanics, are not as well. They don't support the Democrats as much as they used to. That's for sure. And those people are now beginning to switch over to the Republican Party, which is why you're seeing, especially, for example, the South Texas Hispanics, always very solidly Democrat. up until the 2016 election. In 2016, they swung, I think, like 30 points in favor of Trump against Biden. So that says a lot. So anyway, things are changing, but the Upper East Side trends more GOP than the rest of Manhattan. I mean, I guess that's true. Upper West Side is very solid blue. Manhattan is this, yeah, okay. Let's see. So overall, it's good to have the overall percentage. Curtis Sliwa with 66%. It's interesting, Sliwa. I wonder what Sliwa, because Sliwa in Russian means plum, and Sliwa I think is a Polish last name. I wonder if it's the same meaning. I'm sorry. Eric Adams got 66%. Sliwa got 28.8%, and he did better than Trump. So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, 2021 was a horrible year for a Republican election. Here in my state of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin won the governor's race. He improved, I think, by like 10 points or something over Donald Trump's performance. So yeah, there's definitely a swing, and it's to be honest, it's a reaction against two things. Basically, is sort of COVID lockdown, people going too crazy over COVID. A lot of people are against that, and the culture war thing. A lot of people think that sort of wokeness has gone too far or whatever, or is about to go too far, or they're concerned about it. So those two issues, the COVID restrictions and the woke overzealousness and corporate, a lot of people feel like it's sort of being kind of forced upon them by the corporate elite or whatever. So those two things together contribute to the swing in favor of the Republican Party. So this is cool. I really appreciate this map here. Okay, last one. So map relating to what countries are considering / going to ban plastic bags. Okay. I wonder why that is. Okay, so yeah, so let's analyze this kind of country by country. So full or partial ban. Canada, okay, that makes perfect sense. Why is Canada banning it? It's probably for environmental reasons. It's the same reason why a lot of more environmentally conscious jurisdictions in the United States have banned plastic bags. Full or partial ban for a lot of European countries. Are plastic bags banned in Ukraine? That's really interesting. Banning plastic bags is one of those things that as a politician you can do, and it's very good messaging because it sounds like you're supporting the environment, and everybody has seen pictures of plastic bags tumbling in the wind and washing up on shores and stuff, and it's disgusting. So banning plastic bags is one of those things that you can very easily do as to get political points, basically. So because I was confused. I was like, why is Ukraine and Georgia and Azerbaijan and those countries, why are they banning plastic bags? It doesn't make any sense. But I think what they're doing is they're doing this to curry favor with the European Union and those countries. And sort of to demonstrate that they're on board with that agenda, basically. Yeah, charge / tax. That's what they have in Chicago. It's like 10 cents, I think, or maybe the whole state of Illinois, 10 cents per plastic bag. It really doesn't change much. It just kind of, it forces you to think about it, because when you walk up to the register, they ask you, would you like to buy plastic bags? And so, but I mean, you just buy them anyway. Like nobody's going to be like $1 short to get 10 plastic bags, so I don't really see how that changes all that much, but. So it says Serbia, Russia, Belarus, and Kyrgyzstan are considering banning plastic bags. I don't know why. I mean, Russia has a lot of oil and a lot of wood, so they really have no problem producing either of them. A lot of poorer countries do want to ban, like Africa and Latin American countries ban plastic bags just because they're such a nuisance. And they cause a lot of pollution, and they're just, it makes sense. Let me see. Okay, so anyway, the more I think about it, the more I'm just curious about some of these things, and I don't really have an explanation for it. Australia has a charge on all plastic bags except for one state where plastic bags are banned. Serbia has a charge tax. Okay. China banned plastic bags. Interesting. Yeah, the U.S. is very much on a per state, per town basis. That's totally true. Here in Virginia, there's no ban whatsoever. But like I said, Chicago, San Francisco, I think had a ban or something. They have, I mean, they ban a lot of stuff. But yeah, so. So there's a variety, I guess, of overlapping reasons why countries are choosing to ban plastic bags. Um, I suppose I think I understand why. I think it's probably a good idea to at least impose a charge on it. I don't know if 10 cents is really a good enough charge. I think it should be like $1 per plastic bag or something, because that'll really make people stop and think, you know? Because when you go to the store, how many plastic bags do you usually need? I mean, if you're a mom with like 3 kids and you're buying stuff for the whole family, you're going to use a lot of bags. But you know, if you're just me and you're buying it for, you know, for yourself or for 1 or 2 or 3 people, like, you know, 3 or 4 bags, that's $3 or $4, and I think that's a reasonable charge. You know, if you really actually want to reduce usage, I don't think like a 10 cent thing will actually do anything. But I suppose if you look at it from a cynical perspective, adding a 10 cent charge is it's enough for politicians to say, look, we tried, we really did something, but it's a small enough charge that it doesn't actually affect reality in any way, which means that the constituents of the politicians won't get upset, because any kind of additional tax or fee is usually not very politically popular. So from like a game theory perspective, it makes sense why politicians would create extremely insignificant small taxes on plastic bags. Okay, I have exceeded my time limit, so this has been another weekly review. I think the maps have been worse this week. There were more reposts and fewer like really thought-provoking ones. But that's the luck of the draw this week. So stay tuned for next week.